Well, ladies and gentlemen, I must say today I'm feeling a rather bit jaded. And one of the reasons I'm feeling a bit jaded is because YouTube has decided, because of some of the topics that I've covered of recent, one relating to those pesky files in the US that got released. Yeah, apparently my channel is getting slightly shadow banned. In fact, you can actually see on the screen that my videos are only being pushed to like 5% of new people. The rest of it's just going through to the existing subscribers. So help me break the YouTube algorithm and just forward this video onto some friends that actually get some interest. Now, talking of those files, those very pesky files, I can't really say the name because I don't want the video to get struck again. I'm often assured that the entire thing was a psyop by like the Jews, because everything's a Jewish fault, to be honest. But in a leaked document, it would appear that actually Israel notified the US in advance that said incidents were occurring and actually tried to stop them. In fact, said leaked document shows that the United States ignored the warning sent to it by Israel. Anyway, let's keep on the topic of Israel, and I'm sure you're all groaning, but there is a reason for this, because you will recall that the UN Special Reporter to Palestine, yep, that make-believe land, well, that individual was hosted by the Nelson Mandela Foundation. They also went around South Africa and did numerous speeches around the evils of the evil Israelis and the virtues of the Palestinians. Now, said individual has recently described Israel as, and I quote, the enemy of humanity. In fact, don't take my words for it. Watch it right here.
Instead of stopping Israel, most of the world has armed, giving it political excuses, political sheltering, economic and financial support. We now see that we, as a humanity, have a common enemy.
Now, those statements were made on Al Jazeera alongside Hamas-linked figures. So yes, that individual is definitively like proper authoritative and completely independent. Now, Francesca Albanese has been condemned for anti-Semitism by France, Germany, Canada, the US, but despite all of this, her UN mandate has been renewed. Now, even more interestingly, a UN genocide expert's mandate has been ended, and this is the same genocide expert who said there was no genocide in Gaza. Now, Marco Rubio sanctioned Albanese, but the South African government thought it would be a really good idea to host them and talk about how virtuous and brilliant they were. Now, talking of virtues, the reason I cover this topic is that I'm just getting really bored of all the virtue signalers constantly trying to use Gaza and Israel as somehow their credentials to be virtuous. In fact, have a watch of this video right here.
I was supposed to be removed. Security came and I tried to dodge them. I tried to outrun them, but they got me. They got me good. And they removed me from the court. And what happens in that instance is that a not guilty plea is automatically like put forth. So I didn't plea at all. I tried to say my piece, and in my absence they put forth a not guilty plea, and then I've got to go back in December for the next court date. So mobilise the intifada.
Now, this is what I can only describe as a very provocative looking lady walking through a city of a modern European country who's talking about what she did in order to aid the people of Gaza. But I'm reminded that if you dress like this in Gaza, they will literally beat the living daylights out of you. Like, you will probably be someone's toy for the next few hours, and they'll say you deserved it because of the way you look. But you see, don't think about that too hard. Now, you know who else is not thinking about it too hard? Hollywood. Because what we're constantly seeing now from Hollywood is like virtue signaling par excellence. In fact, have a watch.
Finally, I just want to say, finally, go Birds, and free Palestine. Thank you.
Here I am today denouncing the genocide in Gaza. I'm talking about the IAGS, which is the International Association of Genocide Scholars, who study thoroughly genocide and has declared it is a genocide. And that's why we ask for a commercial and diplomatic blockade and also sanctions on Israel to stop the genocide. Free Palestine.
Okay, come on down. And let's do that first.
This is very important for me. I mean, it's the most important to stick up for people and for peace and for asks to an end to war. And I think it's inspiring to other people to speak up. We have to use our platforms and say what's important to us, because what's the point of being at these big events if you're not going to use your privilege?
Amy, you'll get there.
That's great. A big smile, Hannah. Just splash down in the centre. And then Chris, just back this way. Can we get you on the mark there? Thank you. A couple with the shades and then a couple without.
Now, clips like this are just getting boring. Because you see, in other news, Trump has claimed that when you look at the death tolls in Gaza itself, we're only looking at deaths of 70,000 people. And of that, the Palestinian Authority itself and Hamas confirmed that 58,000 of those individuals were Hamas fighters. Again, don't take my word for it. Here's what Trump said.
Hamas has lost 58,000 people. That's big retribution. That's big retribution. People understand that. So, no, I think they're all tired of fighting, and this really gives the whole Middle East. This is beyond Gaza. Gaza is very important, but this is beyond Gaza.
Now, based on those figures, what you can tell is that 80% of the casualties were combatants, which is completely unusual when it comes through to a modern warfare environment. Now, many of these figures that we get told of the genocide in Gaza originate from political statements and from Hamas sources. The casualties themselves, the casualty figures, are often described as unreliable due to Hamas-run reporting systems. Now, Hamas actually gives stipends to all of the widows of the fighters, and Hamas have said themselves they are paying 50,000 widows their stipends for their fighters. Hamas itself has claimed there's only been just over 70,000 total deaths. Now, the figures themselves show that all the narratives that we've had to listen to around genocides and starvation and all the bollocks, this is the marches through European countries, it's the constant bombardments in the news. It's just bullshit. Like, it hasn't actually happened. So why is this important? Well, because a lot of this conflict has been played out even on the streets of South Africa. We have recently seen protests held outside of the Nelson Mandela Foundation in Houghton, where just over 100 people arrived on buses and minibuses and taxis and conducted a protest. Now, this protest occurred on one day. This is the day, by the way, just before South Africa expelled the Israeli diplomats. Now, the protests carried banners linked to Christian Zionism groups. Now, the reason for that is because the Nelson Mandela Foundation has made it their life's mission to combat and create forms of propaganda to combat Christian Zionism. Now, some protesters said that the pastors had told them what to say. Now, others said that the transport was free and they thought it was for fun. Are you noticing how even in the articles that mainstream legacy media is pushing forward, they're trying to tell us that these individuals don't know why they're there. They were just bussed in for fun. Have you ever seen the legacy media do that to an EFF protest, an MK protest, an ANC protest, a Free Palestine protest, a South African Communist Party protest? Have you ever seen that before? Because I haven't. But in this instance, no, apparently transport was free and they all thought it was fun, and let's just try to discredit the protest in the national press. Now, the protests were actually mobilized on Facebook by South African Friends for Israel. Now, some of those protesters actually blamed Pandor for the diplomatic expulsions, but IOL made it their last mission to show that Pandor was not responsible for the expulsion, that Pandor had only supported South Africa's ICJ case against Israel, and as the Nelson Mandela Foundation's chair, Pandor had invited the UN Special Reporter, Francesca Albanese, to give the Mandela lecture, and that Albanese's lecture had drawn large crowds. Are you seeing how they're playing this? You can see the way they're angling it, right? Now, the pro-Israel lobby reacted negatively to Pandor and her invite and labeled Pandor a jihadist. IOL then assures us that AI-generated defamatory images of Pandor were circulated, that Zionist donors withdrew their funding from the Nelson Mandela Foundation, that Albanese learned the US had sanctioned her, and that the South African Zionist Federation had submitted a memo to the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And the memo accused Pandor of betraying Mandela's legacy, the memo called Albanese anti-Semitic, and the memo accused Pandor of weaponizing the foundation and making baseless genocide claims. And I've just gone through all of this, and nothing is wrong there. Nothing that's been said there is incorrect. Albanese is anti-Semitic by her own statements. The foundation is being weaponized on baseless genocide claims that, according to the figures, don't exist. But we've still got to all hear about the insane virtue signaling that constantly occurs. Now, the chief rabbi, Warren Goldstein, called the diplomatic expulsion of the Israelis state capture 2.0. And Rabbi Goldstein warned the ANC and the Eastern Cape of curses if Israel's ties had been ended. But you got to put this into context, and there is a degree of truth in that. Israel was attempting to help many individuals and communities in the Eastern Cape that get no state assistance whatsoever. And in response to that, because there were Israelis in the country and South Africa decided, well, can't have that, they're showing us up, they expelled them. Well, this will hurt the normal citizens of the Eastern Cape that rely on Israel to give them water, hospitals, aid, the things that actually benefit people. But as Rabbi Goldstein claimed, South Africa's foreign policy was part of an Israeli proxy strategy, and they didn't really care ultimately about the average citizen in the country. Now, IOL went further to tell me and assure me that many Jewish South Africans criticized Rabbi Goldstein publicly. And I must say, no, they don't. Everyone agrees with Rabbi Goldstein because he's right. In fact, anybody who's not an anti-Semitic prick who has a brain cell will be listening to most of this and going, they've got a point. But you see, IOL, much like many of the legacy outfits, want to assure me that this cannot be the case. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I am bored and I'm feeling very jaded of the topic. The lies can only go so far. Political agendas only go so far before we all look at it and go, we see you for who you are. So why am I drawing reference to a lot of this? Well, because Ramaphosa is due to give his SONA soon, and we know that Ramaphosa is probably going to talk about how South Africa's turned the corner and that how all of our major problems are just a thing of the past, despite them all being right there. And we have to remind ourselves that the last 10 years have been extremely difficult for South African citizens. If you think really about what's happened in the last 10 years, we've had the Durban riots, we've had the virus of unknown specification that did some crazy things to people in 2020. I'm still not comfortable saying it on YouTube in case the channel gets struck. So we all know what's happened. We've seen state capture, criminal capture, this capture, that capture. We've seen so many things just in the last 10 years. Now, what we do know is that Ramaphosa will be addressing the crime issue in South Africa, which he describes as a major public concern. But the public wants offenders locked up permanently, and this is actually one of the problems we have in South Africa. We have a communist government who constantly emphasizes rehabilitation and reintegration, whilst many of us just say, you can't reintegrate these individuals. If you want to make South Africa safer, you need to lock them up permanently. Many of these ex-offenders leave prison with mental health and substance abuse issues. They go to prison, they don't fix that. And the crime issue in South Africa, which should be one of the key issues of Ramaphosa's SONA, specifically in light of everything that's happening with the criminal capture commissions, is, well, it's probably going to be a footnote. Now, a big problem that we're going to find when it gets through to the SONA is really around budgetary constraints, because the budget in South Africa is very tight. Yes, the government needs to tackle crime. Yes, the government needs to fix the economy, but our budgets aren't very big, and there's so many things that need fixing in the country. So, what are we likely to get instead? Yeah, more about Palestine and Gaza and ICJ cases and things that really don't make a difference to yours or mine life. That's why this topic is important, because it is used as a deflection to side away from the things that actually matter. we all sit there praising the things that don't matter, and the things that do we ignore. Now, one of the things that I wish that I personally could ignore is the NHI, and I did a section on the NHI yesterday around where that's currently going, and spoiler alert, it's nowhere. Now, as you'll know, the NHI Act is currently with the Constitutional Court, but the Constitutional Court, as of today, has deferred a challenge to the NHI Act. Now, the case challenges the rationality of Ramaphosa signing the NHI into law, and has been deferred due to separate case challenges against the legislative process. Now, 8 organizations are challenging the NHI. Challenges include hospitals, funders, doctors, unions, and political parties. Now, challenges include the constitutionality and the dismantling of the private healthcare, concerns about patient choice under the NHI, and these legal battles are expected to delay the rollout for years, possibly decades. But as I've said in numerous other videos, our health minister, Minister Moron, still seeks to just continue ahead with the NHI anyway. But the problem is, as the Finance Minister Gordon has warned, we don't have the money. We simply don't have the money. It's just not going to happen. So we're probably going to hear in the SONA all about that bull rubbish too. Yeah, NHI, because they signed it. But you see, this is the problem. It's all good and fun to promote all of these lofty little ideas on things that you put on paper when you don't actually have to roll them out. You don't actually have to deliver them. Instead, we can all just talk about things that, as I said, just don't matter. Now, the government loves to say how much they love Palestine. I mean, Palestine is just so important to them. But you see, you know what they don't actually talk about? And it's something that they should talk about. There's this amazing thing in Palestine, that make-believe place, called pay for slay. Don't know if you know what that is, but that's a stipend. Effectively, the Palestinian Authority pays individuals, Muslims, terrorists, that kill Jews. They get paid to kill Jews. This is true. This genuinely happens. Now, the Palestinian Authority has been under numerous bits of, let's call it pressure, to cease their pay-to-slay stipends so that they can basically stop having terrorist attacks in those areas, but they won't. Now, it's estimated that they pay $315 million annually for pay-to-slay. Now, payments are often disguised as civil service salaries, pensions, and security pay. And there are over 23,000 individuals who get this. Now, recipients often include prisoners and families of attackers. Now, these payments increase with prison sentences. The lengthier the sentence, the more the family get paid, which does mean that the severity of the attack is often escalated purely for financial reasons. Now, the Palestinian Authority has been told numerous times to stop paying, but they don't. In fact, they continue to have what they class as the Martyrs Fund. Yep, 7% of the Palestinian Authority's budget goes to the Martyrs Fund. And it's important to remember that that fund often comes from donors who include the EU, Germany, France, and the US. Yeah, this is where we are. Nobody wants to talk about that. But we're going to talk about local bullshit that never happened. Like, oh, the genocide narrative. Oh, look at Israel and the list and some other bull rubbish. It's tiresome because it's all lies. And it's all lies by individuals who want to signal just how righteous they are through their own little virtue signaling. And it's tiresome because you know one of the other things that they could comment on? Well, Israel has just changed the laws in Judea and Samaria to allow Jews to finally buy land in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. And would you know it, the Palestinian Authority has gone absolutely apeshit over it. They've absolutely lost their marbles. Like it's apartheid. So it's apartheid to allow anybody of any religion to buy property and land and not just reserving it for Muslims as was done under the Jordanian law. I'm pretty sure that happened once before. Yeah, that would be apartheid, where they had the Land Registry Act and the exclusion of black ownership to land. But I'm assured that when the Muslims do it in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, it's fine. But whatever Israel does, well, that's apartheid. It's so tiresome and it's so obviously bullshit. And I cannot believe that people still fall for this. It's just boring. And I cannot believe that the South African media still expects the South African public to buy this. Even more importantly, I can't believe the South African public buys this. Anyway, that's just my opinions. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And until next time, bye.
So I'm exploring ancient Palestine right now, and I just came across this incredible archaeological site. Excuse me, sir, do you speak the local language here?
Yeah.
What does this inscription say?
It's an ancient Palestinian inscription. Ibrahim, Isaac, Yaqub, Shalom al Israel.
Sorry, what was that last part?
Shalom al Israel.
Shalom al Israel.
Salam upon Palestine. Shalom al Palestine.
Yeah.
Palestine.
No, I mean, what is the word, that last word?
Israel.
This says Palestine.
Yeah, right here. Israel.
Yeah.
Which means
This is Arabic, no?
it's Yiddish.